I know.
Rape.
What do you think about Anita Sarkeesian going to the UN? Did
Oh
you
my
see that?
goodness, we
Okay, let's
actually
go.
touched on this with the drunken peasants. I appeared on their. Do you know who those guys are? Or
Yeah,
no?
we know.
I've
Yeah.
never heard of them.
You're being sarcastic. Okay.
Yes, of course.
So on their show, as you know, they sort of put out these clips, and I didn't know that she had been to the United Nations, and
Yeah.
to my horror, I saw her testimony with some other woman whom I've never heard of, talking about
Zoe
how
Quinn,
what. Do you know which is the other woman? I don't know.
Zoe Quinn, I think it was, right?
Okay, yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And so apparently the idea was that when they get criticized on Twitter, it's a form of cyberbullying.
Mhm.
But I'm not talking here. Somebody saying, I'm going to cut you up. Just the fact that somebody makes fun of them, somebody criticizes them, belittles them, all of these things are forms of, verbal online violence against women that
Yeah.
necessitates the United Nations to step in to help out. So
is amazing.
this whole
Yeah.
thing about genital mutilation and honor brides, honor killings, and child bride takes kind of a back seat to the really important issue of.
Important issues, in case you weren't aware, the important issues are: don't you say my baby isn't cute. You say I got an ugly baby. That's fucking like verbal abuse and shit. That's what
Right.
matters on the
Cyber violence.
that
Right.
such a if you put yourself out there in any way, and especially if you talk about issues that are, people have differing opinions, you can expect people to say something.
Yes.
You can make fun of the craziest shit, and like I mentioned earlier, you could say orgasms are good, and I can almost promise if that video stays up for a couple years, you'll get comments saying, well, I disagree, orgasms are actually pretty bad. You can get people to disagree with anything, and the idea that is harassment or bullying, and it just makes people look like they're playing the victim card so fucking hard they don't know when to stop.
Yeah.
Well, and I drew a comparison between Anita Sarkeesian, a fake feminist, and
Damn.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali, a true feminist, right? I
Yeah.
mean, here's a woman
Yeah.
who is standing up for the rights of women around the world for some really serious issues that they
Mhm.
face. And so on the one hand, you've got somebody who's doing a content analysis of female depictions in videos. And then on the other hand, you've got somebody who's got to walk around for 10 years with a massive security detail, lest she's going to be beheaded. And so it puts in perspective, who's being bullied around,
Oh, and you might.
That's two different things to me.
Hold on, let non-stamp collector go. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think it's a slight case of apples and oranges there. I mean, Anita Sarkeesian, I don't really mind her. I don't take much attention of the Twitter sphere, but I think her video series is valid. I think it's all right. I don't see any problem. I can watch those whole videos. They go quite long, and I'll watch it all and I go, yeah, it's a fairly interesting argument. Okay, I don't really do video games, but I can see where she's coming from, having studied sort of undergraduate cultural studies and that kind of thing. I mean, I don't get very excited by it, but I can see it. Yeah, that's interesting. And the kickback that she gets is disproportionate, and death threats and all that sort of thing. But I don't think comparing it to somebody like Ayaan Hirsi Ali, I mean, that's a different sphere altogether. I don't see the kind of comparing one to the other.
I guess my comparison.
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, the whole death threat thing and having the female genital mutilation, that's not what Anita Sarkeesian set out to do, and you can't really criticize her for having not done that, because that was never her agenda. It was video games, quite light in comparison, but anyway.
Should I go?
Well, go ahead, Dark Matter, and go, Gad.
I was just going to say, yes, point taken, and I understand that. I guess the issue is, in a world of fixed pie of time and energy, where you position yourself. I don't mean to be harsh on Anita Sarkeesian, but if you position yourself as a champion of women's rights, somebody who's going to make a difference in improving the plight of women, as I think she stated, then I'm proposing that doing a content analysis of the horrifying violence depicted against women is maybe not the best way to. Now, I'm not saying that analysis can't be done. All I'm saying is that we have to put it in perspective. If you truly call yourself a champion of women's rights and you want to improve women's plight, then maybe doing this trope analysis is not the way to go. But yeah, of course, it's good and it's interesting, and it made a nice, I think she did her master's thesis on it. So I have no problem with it, except that maybe she's a bit self-aggrandizing in the way she positions her importance. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I wonder if I think the response that she got was bewildering to her in terms of the death threats, and that, you know, she had to cancel the speech she wanted to give at some university because the police wouldn't protect her.
No, oh no. I'm gonna stop you right there. That's not. Yeah. She didn't cancel it because of the threat. She canceled it because they refused to violate the constitutional, state and federal constitutional rights of the citizens of Utah in order to make her feel better.
Well, to make her feel better, to make her feel like she wasn't going to be killed. It's not a credible threat. The FBI said that. All the investigatory agencies said it was not a credible threat. That's part of the problem with her. She completely and utterly lies about things, including what she's doing. Her video series is a bunch of propaganda. She lies about it. She distorts things. She puts her own ideological bent on it, and then she says, I'm a victim because I've gotten all this hatred and violence towards me, when a lot of it is criticism, valid criticism, that just has to be pushed aside because it is violence against women, and it's this horrible backlash against just women speaking online. And that's one of the reasons why she went up in front of the UN to say that she's this horrible victim of online violence, when many people put up with this. A lot of people put up with it. The people who put out a message, especially if it's going to be, what's somewhat
Islam
controversial,
like that,
put up with this type of thing. And that's why he brought up Ayan Hirthi Ali. And she has a much more reason to be afraid, much more reason to actually fear for her life, because unlike the trolls online, the people who usually speak out against those who leave the faith generally trying to get more violent than just saying shit online.
Can I give you a personal? I'm sorry, go ahead. Who's speaking?
It was me, Coctopus. I was just going to say real quick, I disagree with you, Paul, and because of that, I'm going to shoot you in the face.
there you go, Gad. Go, Gad.
Let me give you a quick personal. I mean, I've been fortunate in that, despite the fact that I take very open positions on matters that are a lot more serious than content analysis of video games, I haven't had too many serious, threats. But the danger is sufficiently serious that I'll just share a very quick anecdote with you, personal anecdote. So I've had my wife kind of come around when she sees me opening up my laptop and is aware that I've got a pretty sizable platform from which to spew my ideas. And she kind of looks nervously, and I'm like, well, why are you hovering around me? And then she answers, remember that we have 2 children, right? And so here we are in the 21st century, a professor in Montreal, Canada. His wife, her reflex, whether rightly or wrongly, is sufficiently serious. She's sufficiently worried that I might say or write something that might put our children at risk. Now, I don't sit around all day whining and going to the United Nations. And I promise you that I've got people who are profoundly more serious in their, pursuits than the trolls that go after Anita. So what I'm saying is that we kind of have to step back and put things in context. What I don't like about Anita, I don't know her, I don't follow her, I don't know anything about her, but she seems like she's somebody who is afflicted with aversion, and I mentioned this on Drunken Peasants, with Munchausen disorder. I don't know if any of you know it. So Munchausen syndrome is where you feign illness so that you could garner the intoxication of the sympathy, right? So you go to the hospital and people say, oh my God, you're such a victim. What happened to you? Let's all and this is what she's basically doing. She's repeatedly crying victim when there are people that I personally know. What do you think Sam Harris gets? Why isn't he walking around whining all day at the United Nations? Yes. So I don't respect that. I mean, I escaped execution in Lebanon. and I'm not whining and crying in front of the United Nations. So get a grip, Anita Sarkeesian. Maybe I'm being too unforgiving.
No,
No,
well said. I agree.
Yeah, I disagree
not
with that.
in my opinion.
I completely agree with you. With Anita, one of the biggest things for Anita is Anita absolutely silences every bit of dissent. She doesn't engage in public. She doesn't allow comments on her videos. Absolutely no. Even when she's giving speeches, it's all straight from notes. Absolutely nothing.
Of course, dude, she can't. She literally just said that she won't like put up with its threats. Of course, someone that considers any kind of dissent or comment not sucking their dick to be offensive,
TJ,
and they
we
won't
receive
put up with that kind of bullshit. And if you're going to go along with that line of reasoning, then don't be surprised when people call you out on their own, because they don't have the opportunity to do it on your videos. They don't even have the chance to like upvote it or downvote it or anything, because you know how shitty you sound to most people and that you can get called out. And so you silence the opposition one way or another. And even on a smaller scale, that shit can be detrimental to a channel.
Right. And to say, as far as the death threats goes, I'm not in any way supporting anybody threatening, Anita's life or anything like that.
Yeah, of course not.
Fuck you, I'm going to kill you for saying that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm passionate. I'm sorry, I got loud and a bit passionate there, but I've watched her I've watched her since she started the Feminist Frequency, and when she started it's because she got no traction talking about TV shows and talking about other media. But then she found something where she would get some opposition, where she would get some backlash because of how she was going about it. And so she took off from that. She used the immediate reaction she got to boost it more, and she's been going on that since, saying, well, look at the immediate reaction I got, how sexist it was, how misogynist it was, how horrible it was, how violently people were. And she's been using that ever since to keep going on more and more as being a professional victim, in my opinion.
Non-stamp?
While pushing out propagandist views on things.
Non-stamp? And then dark matter?
No, I completely disagree with that. I mean, the little experience I've had, as I said, with sort of cultural studies and a little bit of exposure to feminist theory and textual criticism, I sort of viewed her theories as a kind of, textual criticism and look at this. I mean, you look at the way women are depicted. I did this unit, cultural studies, very basic, sort of 101 stuff about discourse. And what does discourse mean? And discourse is the things that enter a text without the author's knowledge. It's the culture that enters into a text without them knowing. Things like, back in the day, no one would think twice about the fact that the slave was black. That's not a good example, but why did the woman in that book do this thing? That's just because the author put that in, because that was sort of normal cultural input. That we can see once that cultural kind of acceptance of that stereotype has been lifted, then you can suddenly see it. You can see that in old movies from the 50s or something. You can see these stereotypes come out, which back then no one could see. It was kind of invisible. And so when you kind of look at a text and you take that discourse out and it becomes kind of visible, and that's interesting. I think that's all she did with those video game videos.
No, she didn't. She cherry picks. She cherry picks and she creates things. Like, okay, for a perfect example that everyone knows except for, I guess, people who don't know video games, apparently, Hitman. Apparently, you are encouraged to kill the women when you're not. You are penalized for it. It is not. It's allowed in the game because it's part of the game mechanic. You're allowed to kill anyone in the game and hide a body. But she specifically says you are encouraged because of gender roles, because of society, because of whatever. You are encouraged because you don't see women as actual women. You see them as objects to kill them and just play with their body. And she puts it on screen like that's what the whole point of the game is. And that is completely mischaracterizing it and pushing an agenda. And that is what she does in her videos.
That either she used a clip of someone misusing it or she did it herself. Either way, I totally agree with the ginger for the first time in like the past No, but seriously, like she really does go out of her way.
She does, yeah.
To show it's that same victim card shit as like someone told me I was ugly, therefore they're attacking me on the internet and I'm a victim. Like that you put yourself out there, you put your face on the internet and shit's gonna happen. You put a picture of your baby on there, all right, and it could go viral. And a lot of people could be like, "Oh, that's an ugly baby."
Yeah.
Get used to it. That's what posting your shit online entails. It entails criticism. If you don't want the criticism, fine. She is totally allowed to have her opinion, but then she goes and silences those that have an opposing opinion and calls herself a victim when they tries to express that opinion. Fuck that shit.
Can
I? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to pick up on something that Dark Matter said. So I'm actually a supporter of...
You mean non-stamp collector? Is it non-stamp?
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to conflate the two. Dark Matter is the stupid animation. A non-stamp collector is the actual person in the white shirt with red sleeves.
Whatever, fine.
Sorry for the correction.
So I agree that the content analytic approach, so just to kind of give a bit of a background, so in my own work, I argue that if you want to study aspects of human nature, you could study what I call fossils of the human mind. It actually perfectly plays into the discussion of Anita Sarkeesian, but I think you'll see that one of us, between Anita and myself, if I may say, is a scientist. The other one is a charlatan, and I'll let you decide who's who. So here it goes. So I argue that there are things called fossils of the human mind, right? The brain doesn't fossilize, right? If you're a paleontologist, you could go and study skeletal remains or fossil remains to study the evolutionary history of a species. But if you want to study the evolution of the human mind, the mind doesn't fossilize. But what does fossilize are the cultural products that human minds have left behind. So I could study Greek tragedies written 3,000 years ago and demonstrate that there are certain universal themes in those Greek tragedies that move us in exactly the same way today. In other words, I could put myself in the mind of the Greek author 3,000 years ago and completely understand when he's talking about sibling rivalry and status seeking and paternity uncertainty. And I use the techniques of content analysis, analyzing the contents of texts and other cultural products to conduct a formal scientific analysis. So I'm completely with you that there is something very valuable about applying that methodology. But the difference between Anita Sarkeesian and someone like me, not that in any way I wish to compare myself to her, is that I actually adhere to the scientific method, meaning that there's a very clear set of data that would support my hypothesis or falsify my hypothesis. The very little that I've seen of that charlatan, basically any single pattern could be construed as supportive of her narrative. So if the guy treats the woman very nicely in the video, then it is a manifestation of benevolent sexism, right? Because you're treating the woman very nicely, you're being chivalrous to her, you're being kind to her, and that's another type of sexism. It's not hostile sexism, it's benevolent sexism. So in other words, she's pretending, she's hiding under the cloak of legitimacy, but she is a buffoon of the highest order. So forget about her victimology. I couldn't have offered a more devastating scientific attack of that charlatan. She's the Reza Aslan of content analyses.
Bam.
The Godfather has spoken.
I mean, I've spoken. I dropped the mic now. I'm done.
All right.
Damn.
It's actually stistill attached to your left.
I better see, I get off this, I better see 20,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel.
Joe, if you're recording this, I would love that clip.
I will. It'll be on iTunes.
I wanted to bring up real quick. You were talking about like benevolent sexism versus, I guess, malevolent sexism, which means it's always sexism. And I guess the best way to address that would be just to ignore them like they want. They don't want attention, right? They don't want good attention. They don't want the bad attention. They don't want any attention. So
but then you'll be ignoring the plight of women.
Of course.
Well, so let me address this again using the language of science, right? What differentiates the scientific method from quackery is that there is the principle of falsification, right? So in science, you could collect data that falsifies a theory, right? So for example, destiny is unfalsifiable. Why? Because if I get out of my house and the truck hits me, that was my destiny. If I get out of the house and the truck doesn't hit me, that was my destiny. So which state of the world would result in a non-destiny? Nothing. So destiny doesn't fit within the realm of science. Well, that's what happens with feminism when it is cloaked as academic, right? There is no way to falsify it. If you're nice to a woman, you're sexist. If you're mean to a woman, you're sexist. There is no state of the world where the appellation sexism doesn't apply to you. That's Anita Sarkeesian. So no, I can't support her. She's a charlatan. She's pretending to be doing rigorous academic work. Think about it. If it were rigorous, she would submit it to an academic journal. How come she never has? Because it would never pass muster. Even within the bullshit fields that she's in, it would never pass muster because it doesn't pass scientific method 101. You feel me?
Wow.
Oh, we feel you.
Oh,
Gad.
we feel you, Gad. Don't
I'd
worry.
also say that they
It
try to.
was very
that
intense.
Part of it is she tries to explain away the biological reasoning and the evolutionary reasoning behind things too, like saying, okay, well, using pretty women in advertising is, misogyny or something like that. When there's a reason why beautiful women are used to sell stuff.
Exactly.
Because sex sells.
Right. I mean, think about it. Why is it that romance novels, right? Since she's so interested in content analyses of products, if you do a content analysis of romance novels around the world, what you'll find is the exact same male archetype in every single romance novel.
True,
He's tall, right? Some of you may have heard me use this example. He's tall. He's a count. He's a neurosurgeon. He's a risk taker. He's got abs of steel. He wrestles alligators on a six-pack. He could
50 Shades of Rape.
Right, but I mean, my point is that this is not part of a conspiracy by romance writers. It's because romance writers are catering to evolved mating preferences of women around the world, and therefore they provide them with an archetype that's going to resonate with these readers. So when somebody like Anita Sarkeesian says, there's a massive conspiracy on Madison Avenue and in Hollywood Images to create these images of beautiful women. So, I mean, it's laughable. It is so unscientific. It is so conspiratorial. It's childish.
Well, non-Stamka, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I resonate. You just said the word, and that I'm resonating with what you're saying now, very much so. I love all the stuff about the science and the brain science of how men and women have different brains and why you can map it out. There's that great book. It's kind of popular book. It was called "Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps" or something.
Right. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, like it's just fun and quite light, but it does reference some proper science. And it's great, and the pains that those authors went to on every second page to say, we're not saying men and women are better than each other. We're just saying that women's minds don't, think of maps in this way that men's minds do, and men see things further away and react to things in traffic, for example, faster than women do, because women have evolved to be kind of more in the immediate space. And things like that. I love that kind of stuff.
Well, I'll give you one great example.
I'm sorry. Can we make sure that we all agree on that? Okay, so a bunch of guys
Here we go.
agreed.
I know it.
How women think. We got it, guys. We nailed it.
Gad.
But we have
but that's not
that's
what happened.
fine.
That's exactly what didn't happen, because this is referencing heavy science. I'm saying this woman, the people who wrote this book that I'm referencing, which is just a popular book. It was a paperback book, and it was a married couple, but they're referencing science, and they're saying, look, there is no value judgment in science. This is the way brains work. And I live in Japan. And it turns out that Asian men's brains have less iron in them. Now I'm wired such that men have a this is science. This is not cultural bullshit. This is science. Men have more iron in their brain and can therefore have a better sense of direction. I can always feel where north is. No matter where the fuck I am, I know where north is. It's something to do with iron in the brain. women have less of it, and Asian men have less of it. It's just a fucking fact. You know, there's no value judgment there. So to say, you know, that here are 6 men and we all agree on how women think. No. That's exactly what we're not doing.
It was a total joke, and I'm kind of sorry that you took it.
I didn't take you all that seriously.
As a joke, because we can obviously, even as 6 men, look at the science, and I play devil's advocate all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know this by now.
Oh, no.
I'm giving you the argument that they would be giving us because it's so pathetic in response to the actual fucking evidence.
The guy just admitted that he never takes you seriously, TJ. And
I'm kind of offended.
I slipped that one in there. Yeah,
I was gonna say that you said is it TJ or CJ?
Yeah,
TJ?
yeah, I'm totally triggered right now.
Yeah, TJ.
You said 6 men, and that kind of offends me because you assume, based on my beard and outward phenotype, that I am male.
No, it's because
Drew is the female of the show. Drew's the female of the show, by the way. So.
Hold on, okay.
You did not first ask me what I self-identify as, and I think
purple sofa.
There we go.
It's because
He's a purple sofa. I know what he is. You don't.
Exactly. Very good. You've been following.
Welcome to the Skeptic Fence Show on iTunes and Podomatic. If you enjoy listening to Skeptic Fence, please subscribe to us on YouTube at Skeptic Fence Show and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can find all our social media links on our official website, skepticfence.com. Now, on to the show.